I'm Alan Kasujja, and this is Africa Daily. So, vote counting for the next president started on Monday evening. The voting was mostly peaceful, but a 65-year-old man was shot dead while voting in the south of the country. There have also been some opposition reports of irregularities. I spoke to the BBC's Paul Njie, who has been on the ground in N'Djamena covering the elections. What's the sentiment amongst people? Are they excited? Are they concerned?
Yeah, it's a mixture of both. There are people who are excited for the fact that they were able to vote for their new president because Monday's election is a crucial step marking the end of the 3-year transition. So most people were very proud to be part of that process, and they were hoping that the new leader would be someone who would change the country. But then on the other side of the aisle, others were, they expressed their doubt as to whether things would change. They are just concerned that the election is a mere formality and they don't see anything new happening in their country anytime soon.
Now, how much of an impact does General Muhammad Dabi's candidacy have on Chad's politics, given his family ties and military background?
Well, General Muhammad Dabi, since he assumed office, has been able to have a firm grip over Chadian society. The political, economic legislature, when he say is under this military leader. And so even in the lead up to the polls, we had analysts express concern about the mechanisms that have been put in place to, in their words, ensure that General Muhammad Dabi emerges winner. However, the electoral body, they seem to position the election as an open field for any candidate who is able to emerge victorious. According to them, it's a fair playing field, but some members of the opposition, civil society, they don't see that in that light.
What role do you see Prime Minister Masra playing as a challenger to General Muhammad Dabi in the election?
So Muhammad Dabi is presenting himself as the change that Chad seeks. However, it is coming under some, doubt and criticism of his integration into the government. You would remember, Alan, that Succès Masra was one of the country's leading opposition figures. But when he returned to the country after signing a reconciliation deal, many people said that was a dent to his status as an opposition leader. And now people don't think he presents a fierce contender as he would if he were still in the opposition. But when we spoke to Succès Masra recently in an interview, he told us that he believes that he's the right man for the job, and his being in government has nothing to do with his performance at the polls. Even some analysts have qualified the election as a two-horse race between the president and his prime minister. It's the first time in Chad's history where a sitting president, albeit transitional, would be facing his prime minister in the polls. So Succès Masra on his part he considers himself as a formidable opponent, but only the results will tell if that's the case.
Very interesting. Could you give us some insight into the recent incident of violence during the voting process in Mundu and how it's being perceived locally?
Yeah, well, it is all part of the concern that has been around the electoral process because in Mundu, a 65-year-old man, he was shot at a polling center. People were concerned about the incident. The unknown gunman had opened fire because, according to report, he had been barred from voting. And it just casts, doubt about the security disposition that was put in place, according to some people. I was in the capital in N'Djamena all through Monday, and what I saw was, heavy security presence. And some rights groups have said that the same security dispositions put in place in the capital was not seen in several areas of the country. Adding to that are also concerns of irregularities in the polls. There were some opposition or election observers who decried the fact that there were insufficient ballot papers and were worried about how that would influence the whole process. And candidates also alleging that there were shortages of election materials and that people without voters' cards were allowed to vote. All these are just coming to put a dent to the process, as many people had been saying before the elections.
The opposition is talking about irregularities, and I wonder how that is affecting the perception of the election's legitimacy among people in Chad. Do people believe there is potential for real change following the election?
Again, it's a mixture of both. It's a confluence of yes and no. When we spoke to people, some people said that there definitely needs to be change. Because look, Alan, they've been through a lot. They've gone through 3 years of transition, which many people have described as a brutal transition, where rights violations have been recorded, where the people say the press is not free in this country, and where the economy is faring very poorly, where poverty is taking center stage. Education is not, many would say, the priority here. It has a high illiteracy rate. So with this, many people say that they don't see the prospects of change. However, there are others who say that they are confident that as the country returns to democracy, they hope that there would be a chart where young people, young graduates will be able to have jobs after leaving university, where people will be able to stay in the country and work and not aspire to leave the country, taking dangerous routes like we've seen in other parts of the continent. So these are the issues that concern Chadian people, and they hope that the next president will be able to deliver on them.
You're listening to the BBC's Africa Daily podcast with me, Alan Kasujja, where we're looking at Chad's presidential elections. We've just heard from the BBC's Paul Njie in N'Djamena on the impact these elections will have on Chad's politics.